Hi, my name is Jennifer Keys, and I will be presenting about the Zabbaleen community, also known as the Garbage People in Cairo, Egypt. So this is just a breakdown of the contents that will be discussed in this presentation. First, we'll start off with the purpose and overview of the Zabbaleen community, solid waste management in Egypt, generated solid waste in Egypt in the years 2001, 2006, and 2012, solid waste composition in Egypt, accumulated solid waste in Egypt's governance, location and the business of the Zabbaleen, the rise of hepatitis C among Egypt and neighboring countries, the Zabbaleen prevalence of hepatitis C infection by gender and age group, the effects of the swine flu pandemic, summary, and then references. So the purpose and objective is to discuss solid waste management problem in Egypt, talk about the brief history and background of the Zabbaleen people, hepatitis C exposure and the risks to the Zabbaleen community, and other risks disrupting the Zabbaleen's livelihood. So starting in the 1940s, peasant farmers migrated to Cairo from North Egypt looking for work due to poverty and crop failures. They eventually took over trash collection from the Waya, a Muslim community that already had waste collection agreements. However, the Zabbaleen wanted to utilize the freshness of organic waste and began collecting trash themselves. The Zabbaleen community are primarily Coptic Christians who, unlike the Muslim Waya, wanted to utilize pigs both for profit and food. Not only would they collect, sort, and recycle trash, but they would also feed the pigs the organic waste. The pigs became the foundation of the Zabbaleen enterprise. The Zabbaleen soon developed a sophisticated trash collection system utilizing all members of the family. Fathers and teenage sons would perform the more laborious work by climbing up and down stairs, carrying heavy bags of garbage to donkey carts on the street, while the youngest children would be in charge of watching the collected piles. At the home, mothers and teenage daughters would sort the inorganic trash into 16 different categories, including paper, rags, plastic, and tin. They would also search for things that they could possibly resell for profit. All organic waste was separated out to eventually feed the pigs. Families kept some of the pork to feed their families and would sell the rest to hotels housing foreign tourists for additional income. The Zabbaleen live in 6 districts around Cairo, Egypt. The most famous, known as Rubbish City, is in the Manshiat Nazar district at the base of Mokadam Hills with a population of approximately 50,000 people. Although living in a town full of garbage, conditions have improved since the 1980s, including homes made of bricks instead of tin shacks, availability of running water, and development of schools and even a clinic. In 1990, the city was adamant that the Zabbaleen people replaced the use of donkeys with small trucks for garbage transport. This allowed the young children to leave their guard duties to go to school. By the year 2000, foreign aid grants were being used to encourage and assist Zabbaleen families in creating their own small enterprises by investing in machinery to help recycle paper and plastic. The price of living amid garbage and rubbish is very high for these families. Of course, there is the obvious foul odors. The piles of trash emits toxic gases that can have devastating health consequences. Although it has dropped from 25%, the infant mortality rate stands at 11.7%, which is more than Cairo's average. There's also a severe risk of contracting hepatitis C from used syringes within the trash, where nearly half of the Zabbaleen people have been affected. Regardless of these risks, the Zabbaleen community continue to choose to live in the area where they are free to practice Christianity safely while maintaining a livelihood to support their families. This first graph represents the amount of various solid waste collected in Egypt in 2010. Solid waste management has been a severe issue in Egypt, causing environmental and health concerns towards the sustainability of the country. The increasing levels of hazardous waste from households, medical facilities, construction and demolition sites, agricultural farming, and other sources have led to adverse impacts on the quality of human health and life, freshwater resources, and local ecosystems. Population growth has also exacerbated this issue in many urban cities. And as we can see, the top 2 sources of generated solid waste in Egypt are construction and demolition waste, followed by agricultural waste, which will also be known as organic waste. The next graph displays temporal data showing the growth of solid waste in Egypt in the years 2001, 2006, and 2012. Issues Egypt faces in waste management include inadequate legislation, institutional deficits, and constraints on resources. Open dumping has also been the most popular method of waste disposal, leading to a problem that continues to grow for Egypt, especially in agricultural waste. As one can see in the pie chart, agricultural waste, also known as organic waste, encompasses the majority of waste collection in Egypt by contributing as much as 60%. Low-income countries, like Egypt, have a high proportion of organic waste. This is the type of waste the Zabbaleen considered to be most valuable towards their livelihoods, while also sorting and recycling the rest for profit. Figure 3 shows the distribution of accumulated waste among the governorates of Egypt in 2012. Not only does Cairo contain the most accumulated solid waste, it also is one of the top 5 governorates of waste collection coverage. Much of it can be attributed to the Zabbaleen people. This figure shows the location of the Zabbaleen's main settlement. It also shows how close it is to Cairo's business and administrative centers. Cairo consists of approximately 14 million people, where it is estimated that the Zabbaleen handled 1/3 of Cairo's waste, but specifically from poorer districts. They would collect up to 3,000 tons of waste per day and would recycle 85% of it at 80 tons per cent, generating income for the community. The average collector would make from 360 to 450 Egyptian pounds, which is the equivalent to 60 to 75 US dollars according to 2012 rates. Those working in the recycling industries were the highest paid workers, while waste transporters made the lowest wages. The Zabbaleen settlement contained 700 family-owned waste collection enterprises, 20 small and medium-scale recycling enterprises, and owned 120 trading enterprises, along with community-based service businesses and maintenance workshops. It is safe to say that the Zabbaleen people developed an efficient way to manage Cairo's solid waste at a minimal cost to the city. If you recall, only 4% of Egypt's solid waste management comes from medical waste. However, regardless of the small percentage, it has still placed severe risk on the Zabbaleen population by becoming infected through contaminated syringes in the trash. Nearly half of the Zabbaleen population has been infected with the disease. A 2013 report claimed that Egypt produced almost 4 million tons of medical waste per year. In Cairo specifically, out of approximately 17,000 kilograms of medical waste disposed of daily, only 4,000 kilograms are treated correctly. This graph shows the serious impact of the hepatitis C virus has had on the Egyptian population compared to other developing countries, as well as the United States. Medical waste has been the main contributor to the spread of the virus among the Zabbaleen population and has killed an estimated 40,000 Egyptians per year. You can see here that none of Egypt's neighbors has had as high of a prevalence as Egypt, reaching 14.7% in 2008. This figure represents the hepatitis prevalence in age among females to males from a 2004 study within the Zabbaleen community in the Mokatem Hills slum. Here we can see a steady increase in prevalence in age, with the mean age being 41 years. It was suggested that the high rate in adults may also stem from the schistosomiasis mass treatment campaign back in the 1970s. However, given the lack of protective equipment and resources, along with increased waste, garbage collectors are still considered having a high risk of infection. It is also worth noting that while the prevalence was highest among adults, prevalence of those between 10 and 25 years of age was unexpectedly high. In 2009, the H1N1 swine flu pandemic emerged and became a major fear among the Egyptian government. Although there were no cases of swine flu in Egypt, the government decided to slaughter all 300,000 of its pigs, taking away the Zabbaleen's main processor of organic waste. Although the government promised that they would be butchered and utilized for food, it was reported that most, if not all, were simply dumped as garbage. The government's justification was that it would help improve sanitary conditions of the Zabbaleen, and it was also theorized that it was an attempt to relocate the Zabbaleen community. This severely disrupted the livelihoods of about 70,000 Zabbaleen families, as the pigs were their main source of income. As you see, households could make as much as 450 Egyptian pounds per pig prior to the slaughter. Afterwards, the most they could get was 250 Egyptian pounds from the government compensation. Without the pigs, food waste began to pile up, and soon the threat of swine flu was replaced by typhus. The Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations later called Egypt's action a mistake due to the fact that no cases of swine flu were reported prior to the slaughter, where instead 891 cases and 2 deaths were reported afterwards, proving that the pigs were not the culprit of the disease. Although they may be considered the garbage people and often thought of as inferior within the Egyptian community, the Zabbaleen have over time created one of the world's most efficient waste recycling and sustainable resource recovery systems. Zabbaleen family businesses manage to recycle about 85% of rubbish they collect, whereas Germany, with the highest rate of household waste recycling in the world, can only boast a rate of 56%. In the meantime, the Zabbaleen continue to face impacts of many risk factors of their livelihoods, including the spread of infectious diseases like hepatitis C, rebounding from the 2009 slaughter of pigs during the swine flu pandemic, and even threats of multinational corporations taking over waste management services that would ultimately lead to a significant decrease in income compared to what they could make on their own. Regardless of their living conditions, much can be learned about the waste management and sustainability methods of the Zabbaleen, and should be considered towards improving the remaining parts of Egypt. And here are my references. Thank you for listening.